I told my mom to stop redecorating my house like it's hers. Okay, so here's the setup. I, 32F, live with my husband, 34M. We've been married for 3 years, and just last year we finally bought our first home together. It's not huge or anything, but it's ours. And to me, that's everything. After years of renting and living in places where I couldn't even put a nail in the wall without worrying about losing a security deposit, owning a home feels like freedom. Like, this is our little kingdom kind of freedom. But here's the issue. My mom, 60F, doesn't really seem to see it that way. Or maybe she sees it as her kingdom too. I don't even know anymore. A little context about my mom. She has always been that person when it comes to homes and decorating. Growing up, my childhood home was basically her canvas. She loved rearranging furniture at random, changing curtains with the seasons, buying throw pillows like they were milk and bread. Like other people's moms had signature recipes, mine had signature themes. One week it was farmhouse chic, and the next week it was nautical vibes, even though we lived nowhere near water. And my bedroom? Forget it. I never got to fully make it mine. I'd put up posters of my favorite band or try to arrange my desk the way I liked it, and within a week, she'd come in while I was at school and fix it. She'd say things like, "Oh, I thought this looked better," or "This layout gives you more space." At the time, I'd get annoyed, but I also brushed it off as just part of living under her roof. Like, when I have my own place, that'll be different. Well, apparently not. When my husband and I bought this house, I honestly thought she'd be happy for us in a way that meant stepping back and letting me take the reins. Like, my baby's all grown up and has her own home now. But instead, it feels like she saw it as a new blank canvas to play with. At first, I didn't even notice it happening because she framed everything as help. She came over while we were still unpacking and suggested where the couch might look better. She'd say things like, "You'll thank me later," or "This corner really needs some greenery." And at first, I laughed it off. I thought, okay, she's just excited for me. But deep down, there was this little voice going, wait, this is mine, right? This is supposed to be my choice now. And here's the other piece, my husband. He is the calm, practical one. He has this ability to let things slide that drives me crazy sometimes because I just can't. When my mom would come over and start fussing with the throw blankets or pushing the coffee table 3 inches to the left, he'd just shrug and go, "It's not worth the fight." Meanwhile, I'd be biting my tongue so hard I thought it might bleed. I guess what I'm trying to say is this didn't come out of nowhere. It's been building. I've been carrying all these little moments of frustration for months, telling myself not to explode, reminding myself that she means well. And I thought, naively, that maybe she'd get it after a while, that she'd sense the line without me having to draw it in bold black ink. When we first moved into the house, it honestly felt like such a dream. I remember standing in the living room, surrounded by half-open boxes, exhausted but grinning like a kid. My husband and I were eating takeout on paper plates on the floor because we hadn't even bought a dining table yet. And I remember saying, "This is perfect." Not because it actually looked perfect, boxes everywhere, walls bare, random furniture we dragged from our old apartment, but because it was ours. And here's where my mom comes in again. She was actually one of the first people to show up with help. She brought over groceries and extra cleaning supplies and even made us dinner while we were unpacking. And in those first days, I genuinely appreciated it. Moving is chaos, and having someone who swoops in with food and energy and a million ideas can be nice in small doses. She walked through the house like she was already seeing the after photo in her head. She said, "This living room has great bones." She said, "Oh, I can just picture some cozy lanterns here and maybe a nice rug to pull it together." I smiled because, well, it didn't feel threatening at that moment. We literally had nothing set up yet, and hearing someone envision it as homely made me excited. So when she started with little things, I didn't mind. She brought over a cute doormat with sunflowers on it and said, "Every house needs a cheerful welcome." She found some inexpensive curtains on sale and hung them up in our kitchen, saying, "This brightens the whole room, doesn't it?" And honestly, yeah, it kind of did. It felt like she was celebrating with us, adding these small touches of warmth. I guess this is where I should admit I let her in. I didn't stop her because at first it really didn't seem like a problem. It even felt like she was bonding with me in this new chapter of my life. Growing up, we fought a lot about control, her rearranging my space, me sulking, but here she was, seemingly, just being supportive. I wanted to believe it was different this time. But even in that honeymoon stage, there were cracks showing. For example, she insisted that our couch was all wrong for the space. We'd bought it only a few months before moving in, and I loved it. It was the first real piece of furniture my husband and I saved up for together. But my mom would wrinkle her nose and say things like, it makes the room feel smaller, or it just doesn't go with the vibe. And she'd move it back and forth, angling it toward the TV or away from the windows like she was solving a puzzle that I never asked her to touch. I remember one Saturday, I came downstairs and she had completely swapped the positions of the couch and the loveseat. Like full on dragged them across the room while I was sleeping in. I just stood there blinking at the furniture like, am I in the twilight zone? She chirped, look how much better this flows. And I laughed because what else do you do? Argue about furniture placement at 8 a.m.? My husband gave me the side glance like, are we cool with this? And I just shrugged because, again, not worth it at that stage. But deep down, something was already gnawing at me. That feeling of, wait, this is my house, right? Kept poking me, even when I wanted to push it down. The thing is, when you're freshly moved into a house, you're still trying to figure out your own style. It's like living in a blank book, waiting to write your story. And instead of me and my husband writing it together, it started to feel like my mom was scribbling in the margins. Sometimes cute doodles, sure, but other times whole sentences that changed the tone. And I kept telling myself, it's temporary, she'll get bored, this is just her way of showing love. I didn't know then how much bigger it would get. The thing about my mom is that she doesn't really do small. She starts small, sure, but she always builds. What began as cute little doormats and kitchen curtains started turning into bigger, bolder moves. And I kept telling myself it wasn't a big deal, but each time it felt like I was giving up another tiny piece of control over my space. It started with the rug. We had this neutral gray rug in the living room that my husband and I picked out together. It wasn't fancy, but it was comfortable, and it matched our vibe. Simple, clean, easy. One day, I came home from work, and there was this enormous patterned rug on the floor, full of blues and greens and swirls. My mom stood there like Vanna White, presenting it to me. Look what I found on sale. It just makes the room, doesn't it? And honestly, I hated it. It clashed with everything, and it wasn't my taste at all. But I froze. I said something like, oh, wow, that's colorful. And she just beamed and launched into a speech about how neutrals are boring and I should take more risks. My husband later whispered to me, do we have to keep it? And I said, just for now, we'll switch it later. But of course, later never came because how do you tell your mom you're rolling up the rug she spent money on? After that, it was little things all the time. She'd show up with throw pillows, artwork, lamps, stuff I never asked for. Sometimes she'd even text me a picture saying, I picked this up for your hallway, can't wait to see it in place. Like it wasn't even a question, just a given. And it wasn't just about buying things. She started rearranging constantly. I'd leave the house with the bookshelf on one wall and come home to find it on another. She'd take down the picture frames we put up and replace them with her better arrangement. She moved my plants, saying they needed more light. She even reorganized the kitchen cabinets. And I mean, everything. I opened the pantry one morning and couldn't find the cereal because she'd optimized the shelves. At first, I tried subtle hints. I'd laugh and say things like, wow, you've been busy, or you should slow down, Mom, this isn't your project. She'd just smile and brush it off. I'm just making it nice for you. She always framed it like she was doing me a huge favor, and if I resisted, I felt like I was being ungrateful. My husband started to lose patience before I did. He'd say things like, "This is getting out of hand," or "You need to talk to her." And I'd nod, but then I'd chicken out because confrontation with my mom isn't simple. She's sensitive, and she has this way of turning everything into her being the victim. I could already hear her saying, "After all I do for you, this is the thanks I get." Still, the resentment was building. I started feeling anxious whenever she texted saying she wanted to come over. Instead of looking forward to seeing her, I'd brace myself, wondering what I'd walk into next. My house, the place that was supposed to be my safe space, started feeling like a stage for her design experiments. One night, after she left, my husband and I sat on the couch she still insisted was all wrong. And he said, "You realize she's just going to keep doing this until you say something, right?" And I knew he was right. I knew I needed to set a boundary. But every time I pictured actually saying the words, "Mom, stop redecorating my house," I imagined her face crumpling, her voice breaking, the guilt trip that would follow. So instead, I kept quiet. I told myself I'd wait for the right moment. But, of course, the right moment never came. Instead, the wrong moment came crashing in, bigger and louder than I ever expected. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because I'd had one of those long, draining work days where all I wanted was to come home, put on some sweatpants, and zone out. I walked into the house, dropped my bag, and immediately felt disoriented, like something was off. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it. The smell of fresh paint hit me before my eyes even caught up. I walked into the living room and just froze. The wall, the one behind our TV, was painted a completely different color. This deep teal blue that I never in my life would have chosen. And not only that, but the entire living room had been rearranged. The couch was shoved to a new angle. The coffee table was replaced by some ornate thing I'd never seen before. And the bookshelves were stripped down and restyled. My mom popped her head out of the kitchen like she was waiting for applause. "Surprise! Doesn't it look amazing? I thought this wall just needed some drama, and I had extra paint left over from my guest room." I think I actually just stood there with my mouth open. I couldn't even form words. My brain was short-circuiting between "what the actual hell?" and "am I dreaming?" But then she kept going. She led me upstairs, chatting like a realtor on a tour. "Oh, and I changed the bedding. That gray was so dull. This floral set just brightens the whole room. And I swapped out your curtains too. They were so heavy." And there it was, my sanctuary, my room turned into something I barely recognized. A floral comforter I hated, frilly curtains that looked like they belonged in a bed and breakfast, and even the throw pillows on my bed replaced with hers. It didn't feel like my room anymore. It felt like hers. Something inside me snapped. I said, probably louder than I meant to, "Mom, what the hell? You can't just come into my house and change everything." Her face fell, but only for a second. Then she went into defensive mode. "Excuse me? I just spent the whole day making this place beautiful for you. Most people would be grateful." I was shaking with anger, with disbelief, with this raw mix of violation and guilt. Grateful? You painted my wall without asking. You replaced my bedding without asking. You rearranged everything without asking. This is my house, Mom, not yours. She gasped like I'd slapped her. "Wow, I cannot believe you're speaking to me like this after everything I do. Do you know how many hours I spent here today? How much money I've spent on this house? And this is the thanks I get?"
I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I wasn't gonna back down. Not this time. You don't get to act like this is your project. This is my home. You don't live here. You don't get to make these decisions. By this point, my husband had come in, probably hearing us from outside. He stepped in quietly, putting a hand on my shoulder, and said, "She's right. You need to stop." That was like throwing gasoline on the fire. My mom's eyes welled up, her voice rose, and suddenly it was a full-blown scene. She was crying, saying she was only trying to help, that I was ungrateful, that I'd humiliated her in her daughter's own home. I kept saying, "I didn't ask you to do any of this," but it was like shouting into a storm. Finally, she grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door so hard it rattled the picture frames on the wall, the few she hadn't already rearranged. And just like that, the house went silent. Except it didn't feel like my house anymore. It felt like a war zone. I collapsed onto the couch and just cried. Part of me was furious. This was the line, the boundary she obliterated. But another part of me was crushed with guilt. She had spent all day here. She had put in effort. And now she was out there somewhere thinking I didn't love her? And I hated that I still felt bad when I was the one whose space was violated. The silence after my mom left felt louder than the argument itself. My husband and I just sat there, staring at the newly rearranged living room like it was some kind of alien landscape. The teal wall, the floral pillows, the weird coffee table, all of it felt like a monument to the fight that had just exploded. My husband finally broke the silence. I mean, I've been saying for months she was pushing it, but wow, that was a lot. I buried my face in my hands. I know, I should have said something sooner. I just didn't think she'd actually, paint my house without asking. He rubbed my back, trying to be supportive, but I could tell he was also frustrated. Not just at her, but a little at me, too. You can't keep letting her bulldoze you and then act shocked when it gets worse. I get that she's your mom, but this isn't sustainable. You have to set real boundaries. And he was right, but hearing it made me want to cry all over again. Because setting boundaries with my mom is never simple. It always spirals into guilt, manipulation, and me second-guessing myself. Sure enough, not even an hour later, my phone started buzzing. First, it was a long, emotional text from her. "I can't believe the way you spoke to me tonight. I was only trying to make your home beautiful. I thought you'd be happy, but instead you attacked me. I feel so unappreciated. I don't even know if I can come over anymore if this is how you see me." I stared at the message, my stomach in knots. It was exactly what I'd feared. She'd spun it so she was the victim, and I was the cruel daughter. Then the call started. First from my aunt, then from my older cousin. "What happened with your mom? She's really upset. She said you screamed at her after she spent all day helping you." My aunt even added, "Honestly, honey, you could have been nicer. She just loves you so much." That's when I felt the anger rise again, because what none of them seemed to grasp is that helping doesn't mean barging in and taking over. Helping is asking, "Do you want me to do this?" and respecting the answer. Helping isn't repainting my wall and swapping out my sheets without permission. But try explaining that to family who only hears one side. My mom's version of the story was probably full of her crying voice saying she was only trying to make things nice. I imagined her sitting there, telling everyone how she spent money and time only to be yelled at. Of course they'd see me as the ungrateful brat. Meanwhile, my husband kept saying, "You don't owe anyone an explanation. It's your house." He was trying to ground me, but my brain just kept spiraling. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I shouldn't have yelled. Maybe I should have said it more gently, more calmly. Maybe she was right, and I really am ungrateful. That night, I couldn't even sleep in our bedroom. The new floral bedding felt like an invasion, like it was whispering at me every time I looked at it. I ended up sleeping on the couch, the all wrong couch that suddenly felt like my only ally. The next morning, my mom hadn't cooled down. She sent another text. "I don't know what to say to you right now. I gave so much of myself yesterday, and you humiliated me. I don't deserve to be treated that way. Maybe when you learn to appreciate me, we can talk." I sat there staring at it, torn between fury and guilt. Because yes, she crossed a boundary, a massive one. But I also hated the idea of my mom sitting there feeling rejected by me. And I hated that I couldn't just be okay with standing my ground, that even when I was right, I still felt wrong. Family started chiming in again over the next few days. A cousin texted me, "You know your mom just wants to be part of your life, right?" My younger brother, bless him, actually sided with me. "She's always done this. It's about control. Don't let her gaslight you." That helped, but only a little. Because the truth was, I didn't know how to move forward. I wanted my mom in my life. I didn't want this to be some huge estrangement. But I also didn't want to live in a house where I was constantly bracing myself for what she'd change next. So I just froze. The days after the fight felt like walking around with a bruise I couldn't stop poking. Everything in the house reminded me of it. The teal wall, the floral bedding, the curtains that didn't feel like mine. Even the cheerful doormat suddenly felt heavy, like a symbol of how I'd let her sneak past every boundary until there was nothing left to defend. But then the guilt would creep in, because my mom didn't break into my house to rob me. She didn't vandalize it out of spite. She genuinely thought she was helping. At least, that's the story she tells to herself, to the family, and to me. And when I replayed the fight in my head, I could still hear her words. I was only trying to make it beautiful. That's the part that messes with me. Because yes, she overstepped. Yes, she ignored my autonomy. But she did it out of what she sees as love. And what kind of daughter screams at her mom for loving too much? I kept going back to childhood. My mom has always been like this. When I was 12 and wanted to paint my room purple, she told me purple was tacky and painted it beige instead. When I was in high school, she reorganized my desk the night before a big project was due because she said it was too messy to think straight. She'd move my posters, replace my bedding, swap out my clothes for things she thought were prettier. And every time I protested, she'd say, "You'll thank me later." Here I am, 32 years old, and I'm still waiting to feel thankful. And yet, when I picture her crying after storming out of my house, clutching her purse, I feel like the worst daughter alive. There's this script in my head that says, "She's your mom. She raised you. She loves you. You don't get to push her away." And it collides with the other voice screaming, "You're allowed to have your own space. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to be an adult." It's like being tugged in two directions until you're split down the middle. My husband keeps trying to reassure me. He says, "You didn't overreact. You finally reacted." He says he's proud of me for standing up to her, but then he also admitted he wishes I'd been calmer, less explosive, more measured. And I know what he means. I didn't just set a boundary, I shouted it. And maybe if I had said it more gently, she wouldn't have spiraled, and maybe the whole family wouldn't be looking at me sideways now. But then again, would she have listened if I whispered? That's the part I keep circling back to. My mom only seems to hear me when I shout. When I hint, when I joke, when I ask politely, it just slides right off her. She steamrolls ahead anyway, convinced she knows best. So maybe the shouting was the only way left. Still, I lie awake at night replaying the words I used, the tone of my voice, the look on her face. I think about her texting me that she doesn't even know if she can come over anymore, and I feel this ache in my chest. Because as much as I want my space, I also don't want to lose her. I don't want to be estranged or distant or the daughter who made her mom feel unwanted. But what's the alternative? That I just hand her the keys and let her keep treating my house like her personal project? That I swallow my frustration forever just to keep her happy? I can't do that either. So I'm stuck in this miserable middle ground, feeling both righteous and guilty at the same time.
Righteous because I know I had every right to draw a line. Guilty because the way I drew it left wounds. And the worst part? I keep asking myself if maybe I am overreacting. Maybe it's just paint, just bedding, just furniture. Maybe it's not that big of a deal and I made it into one. Maybe I'm the one who needs to get over it. But then I look around my house, my supposed safe space, and it doesn't look like me. It looks like her. And I realize it's not just about paint or pillows, it's about respect. It's about whether she sees me as a grown woman in my own right, or just an extension of herself. And I honestly don't know if she ever will. So here I am, sitting in my own house, feeling like a stranger. I keep walking past that teal wall like it's mocking me, reminding me of the fight, of her tears, of my yelling. I keep looking at the floral bedding in the bedroom and thinking this is exactly what I didn't want, a space that doesn't feel like mine. And yet I can't stop feeling guilty. It's not that I don't love my mom, I do. I love her so much it physically hurts to think about her feeling unwanted. She's not a bad person. She's not cruel or malicious. She honestly believes she's helping, that her eye for design is a gift she's giving me. And I think that's what makes this so confusing. How do you draw a line with someone who thinks they're only crossing it out of love? I keep replaying that moment in my head, the one where I shouted, "This is my house, Mom, not yours." And I know those words cut her deep. I can still see her face when I said it. And part of me wonders if I went too far. Could I have said it differently? Could I have softened it? Could I have had the same conversation without it exploding? But then the other part of me screams, no, enough is enough. I've spent my whole life letting her rearrange my space, my decisions, my choices, everything. And if I don't stand firm now, when will I? When I'm 40, 50? Will she still be waltzing into my life with pink hands and shopping bags, convinced she knows better than I do? What scares me most is that maybe she'll never see me as a separate person. Maybe in her mind, I'll always just be an extension of her taste, her preferences, her control. And if that's the case, what am I supposed to do? My husband says I need to stick to my guns. He says this isn't about decor, it's about boundaries. And if I give in now, she'll keep doing it forever. And deep down, I know he's right, but he doesn't carry the same weight I do. He doesn't feel the same pull of guilt when she sends me those tearful texts. He doesn't hear her voice in his head accusing him of being ungrateful. That's something only I carry. Family is already split on it. Some of them think I was harsh. Others, like my younger brother, say she's been controlling forever and I did the right thing. And I'm stuck in the middle, wondering if I'm just a spoiled brat who doesn't appreciate her mom, or if I'm finally standing up for myself. I guess what it comes down to is this. I don't know if I overreacted. On paper, it sounds so simple. Your mom redecorated your house without asking. You told her to stop. End of story. But when emotions are involved, when family history and guilt and love get tangled up in it, it doesn't feel simple at all. It feels messy and heartbreaking. So, internet strangers, I need your advice. Am I the overdramatic daughter who lashed out at her mom for caring too much? Should I have just smiled, changed the paint back later, and let her feel useful? Or was I right to finally draw a hard line, even if it came out harsher than I intended? I feel terrible, but a part of me thinks I'm not just reacting to the paint or the pillows. I'm reacting to years of being steamrolled, years of not being heard. Maybe that's why it came out so explosively, because it wasn't just about one teal wall, it was about my whole life of being told she knows best. So, what do you think? Am I overreacting?